Welcome to MMO Grinder Sidequest, where I take a look at early open or closed betas, subscription trials, and simpler titles, giving you a quick first impression. Today I'll be looking at Fortnite, Epic Games' long-awaited, often changed, horde mode shooter and base builder game. Now that the game has reached an early access state where progress wipes will no longer be a thing, and the NDA has been lifted, let's look into getting this game out into the open where I can finally be about the 800th person to talk about it. Despite its originally and understandably tired nature of the survivor versus zombie horde concept, Fortnite breaks the mold by having a much more cartoony and colorful aesthetic. The zombie-like husks all have cartoonish over-the-top expressions, and when looked at closely have an amusing yet subconsciously horrifying aesthetic that makes them look mostly like skeletons wearing a human skin hoodie. Cities and areas are more vibrant and colorful than you would expect to see from this setting. The oncoming storm that signals the arrival of the hordes is a wispy, cloudy purple, and it's a pretty interesting and intimidating look to see the whirling tornadoes in the sky above each active fight. Nearly every object in the game jiggles about as you smash and search it, just not the things you'd be expecting to. Yeah, these character designs have gotten their fair share of notice from the community. I don't really like this game's music. Unless they add or change it up for the future before the free launch, I dread having to include it for any actual full review. It's not necessarily or objectively bad or anything, but it's vastly unfitting and painfully repetitive. There's this sci-fi airy tone that drones on slowly in the background, while higher, shorter tones beep out a very short loop that repeats endlessly. It plays everywhere, and it's basically the very first thing I reached out and shut off when looking for something to change in the options. It's just bring your own soundtrack unless you want to be lulled to sleep for a game that people might already find too repetitive. Sound is a bit more like it. The screams of the husks can be downright unsettling. Weapons are impactful with various degrees of fitting sounds depending on what you're firing. And this is another one of those games that does the echo of distant gunshots accurately well to eerie effect. It's sad how often this doesn't happen in shooters, and it's easily one of the more atmospheric things that you can add to one. Characters also speak voice clips as you're in combat, and your main narrator, an upbeat AI named Ray, has some well-acted and genuinely funny lines that guide you through the worst possible scenarios and try its damnedest to stay optimistic about it. The tutorial starts you off with the basics of controls and the soldier class character Ramirez. Later on you can earn an upgrade to higher quality versions of these hero characters, including more of the combat-focused soldiers, the build-focused constructors, the collection-focused outlanders, and the speed and melee-focused ninja. Each character within the class grouping have slightly different skill specialties. While Fortnite's gameplay consists mainly of a pretty basic third-person shooter mechanic, it's the how and why that separates the game from the many things people are already trying to simply compare it to. The main meat of the game consists of shooting husks in a timed or quoted amount in order to protect a point or survive a wave. While not every mission is based around finding and defending a point, like gathering survivors or hunting down enemy camps, it is what many of the missions entail, requiring you to gather resources of wood, stone, and metal by smashing most objects on the map with your pickaxe. Use those resources to fortify your points with a pretty in-depth and interesting build mechanic. Getting the hang of both is vital for survival, but the game's difficulty curve at the moment is so gradual when starting out that you might find yourself more effective as a crack shot while building nothing more than a minor fence around your perimeter, but things can escalate fast if you're not keeping in control. Weapon upgrades come in the form of schematics for the crafting system, higher qualities requiring rare materials. Since weapons can be constantly upgraded and crafted, each weapon also has a durability that'll cause it to break when depleted, requiring you to craft a new one. It's not as bad as it sounds. You may even find decent weapons just laying around the map, which would normally be low durability, and if nothing else, if your partner has the ability to craft a really nice weapon, they can easily make you one as well. But you might want to drop the materials for them for that favor. It's only fair. Seeing all the upgrades you collect might seem and even become overwhelming, turning this game into a menu simulator for minutes on end, but it's not required to micromanage these things after every mission, unless that's your thing. Grouping up with others in the game, especially later on, is paramount, and luckily the community, as it stands right now, are pretty decent, save for some of the horror stories from the starter zone, which thankfully is one of the few places you can probably just solo if you really want to. It's best to just bring your friends along, but other players are usually just as mission-focused as you are. Save for that all-too-common case of the one guy running around breaking down everything while the objective is going on, but that's just gonna happen. I've also heard stories of other players giving out high-quality weapons to other players, so while a gamble, it tends to lean more towards the helpful rather than the selfish. Thank God there's no PvP system in this game, as some have decried, as it would be far too easy to grief people in these missions and really wouldn't make a lick of sense in this world. The sore spot for many is just how these schematics, heroes, and survivors are earned, and despite giving out quite a few for quest completion, many will be down to the dice roll in the form of the Loot Llamas, each available for cash shop points. Though many can be earned through other means, llamas are a good source of the schematics and survivor cards that you'll receive in-game. And despite this being down to luck and quality, there's plenty more non-cash ways to have to build your character that make these lucky boxes not quite the make-or-break progression items that people have it out for right now. In fact, they won't even have much use unless you unlock the appropriate areas in the research and skill trees. Hell, even the cash shop currency itself is earnable through in-game means, and I'm not talking about a someone else had to pay for it currency exchange. There's plenty more about this system I can get into, but this is a first impressions, and I have no intention of trying to over-explain something that, depending on your point of view, could be made far better or worse in the future. I feel like I'll have to write a better explanation of this in the form of a blog post on my site, especially since I was so harsh on Secret World Legends for doing what many might believe is the exact same thing. But rest assured there are levels of nuance here that I don't want to waste a first impressions video trying to over-explain. The card will appear here when it's ready to take you there if you have any interest. Just note the sore spot is all. While I can easily see this game being something people will burn out on hard, and there is plenty to do in the game that will seem repetitive if you play it for too often in a row, Fortnite is a game I really find myself enjoying and wanting to play, wasting away hours unintentionally just grinding through. There's plenty more to be fleshed out here, and if you're not entirely sold on the concept, I would advise against getting an access pack unless you have a friend who has a spare from their pack. Otherwise, wait to see how it plays out, and hopefully we'll see the free release come sooner rather than later, and you can see if it's worth your full attention. This has been an MMO Grinder Sidequest, and it's time I logged out.